Hello, welcome back to another edition of Road Talk with Cade. On this adventure, I will recount my last trip of the year, where I visit 2 new states, as well as taking 2 college football games in one day. This episode is a combination of my adventure, as well as an end-of-year recap. This adventure starts on the morning of December 14th, 2024. I woke up in a panic as I was in a rush to get out the door. After a quick shower and throwing all my things in a bag, I hopped in the car. The first destination of this trip was the city of Atlanta, Georgia, a city that I have technically been to many times, but I've only ever been in the airport, so I don't think that counts. At noon on Saturday, I would attend the Celebration Bowl in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The first bowl game of the day is a game between the conference champs of the SWAC and the MEAC, 2 conferences that are predominantly HBCUs, which stands for Historically Black Colleges. The Celebration Bowl is the de facto national championship for these universities. The game has been held every year since 2015. When I arrived in Atlanta, the first order of business was to find some breakfast. My first attempt at finding a meal did not last long, as I pulled into the parking lot to see a line of 50 people standing out the door, waiting for a seat. With the time crunch of the day already in full effect, I had to try again. So I rolled through the block to the good old trusty Waffle House. I parked my car and had my usual bacon and sausage hash brown bowl while chatting up a middle-aged black man who was also in town for the game. He attended a historically black college himself. The day had him overjoyed with excitement, as this is the first year he would be in attendance for the Celebration Bowl. After the bite to eat, I walked the half-mile from the Waffle House to the stadium. While walking through downtown, you can feel that Atlanta has its own swagger about it. In every direction you looked, people were wearing brand new Jordans. Every person expresses their own style of fashion in a way that allowed you to know who they were without even speaking to them. As a meat and potato style dresser, it is always nice to see when someone has a sense of fashion backed by the confidence to pull it off. As I moved closer to the stadium, I could feel the buzz in the air as these 2 fan bases prepared for their Super Bowl. I made it inside the stadium with just a few minutes before kickoff. I had to rush to my seat to make sure not to miss the opening kick. With it being a bowl game, crowds tend to be much smaller than the stadium's capacity. The Celebration Bowl is held in an NFL stadium. The spectators only filled around 15% of the seats in the venue. Even with the small crowd, the place was rocking the entire game. From the bands booming back and forth in opposite corners of the stadium, to the fans dancing in unison throughout the stands to every song. It was a college football experience that had the makings of a normal game, but with a unique cultural twist. For the first time in my life, I was a minority in a situation. By minority, I don't think I saw 10 other people the entire time I was in the venue that were not of African American descent. Now, this is in no way supposed to be a negative remark. This was a group of folks who all overcame the ancestral issue of slavery that has plagued our country. They were coming together to support their young men who were not only D1 athletes, but also future college graduates. I found myself oddly proud of the situation that was surrounding me. Not that it had anything to do with me in particular, but knowing that those young men on the field were doing everything they could to give themselves a better future gave me a comforting feeling. I also thoroughly enjoyed the full-on dance parties that would go down at every commercial break. The HBCU crowd had a whole different jive to it, just like the city of Atlanta that the game was being played in. A cultural experience that I enjoyed every second I had in it. After the game, I sprinted back to the car, because I had another drive to make. This time to the second new state of the trip, Alabama. I sadly didn't have time to see the Capitol building or the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, but I'm sure to revisit the city on my travels, so I get to save those experiences for a future story to tell. My second destination brought me to the capital city of Montgomery, Alabama. I arrived with just enough time to check into my hotel and grab a bite to eat at Baumhauer's Victory Grill before my second game of the day. I wolfed down my dinner as fast as possible, then attended my second football game of the day, which was the I.S. Forrest Salute to Veterans Bowl held in the historic Crampton Stadium, just off of downtown Montgomery, Alabama. This bowl game was also unique in its own right. To be fair, all bowl games have their own uniqueness to them because the sport of college football is a goofy sport. The sport first played a national championship game in 1998. Before that, a winner was chosen based on media polling of who they thought the best team was that year. The idea of a bowl game, however, started long before 1998. A bowl bid is awarded to a team after having a successful season of college football. College football is a sport based off of perfection. That's why they didn't have a national championship game until 1998, because whoever went undefeated had the right to claim a national championship. But a successful season in college football means that you won at least 6 of your 12 regular season games. So with it being my last college football game of 2024, the first game I attended of the day was my 6th game of the year. So I saw it fit that I deserved a bowl game of my own right. The second game I attended that day was a celebration for myself as much as it was a football game. Upon entering the stadium, I was giddy as a schoolboy. To start off the action, 5 soldiers parachuted into the stadium without even an announcement. Then it was time to watch 6-6 Southern Alabama take on 6-6 Western Michigan to fight for their right to hoist a trophy at the end of their season. At that moment, I was so excited that I made it. I accomplished the goal I set out to do 9 hours before that when I sat down in my car that morning. I wasn't only proud of what I accomplished that day, however, but this was a celebration for me and what has been a successful year. I want to put a pin in the episode here. The rough copy of the pod had the traveling ending here, and the rest of the episode delving into my end of the year recap, which really did happen. I spent most of the game reflecting on life, but I wanted to finish the trip. The end of the show will be a recount of my thoughts while I sat in the stands of my last football game of the year. So back into the action of the adventure. The Salute to Veterans Bowl was a back-and-forth battle as the sport was intended to be played, with hundreds of soldiers in uniform walking around the venue and a cannon being fired after every score. The part that made me laugh the most was that South Alabama's head coach is named Major Applewhite. The winning coach being named Major and getting to hoist the trophy over his head in front of a bunch of soldiers was just a perfect ending to the football game. It was so perfect that I don't think it could have happened any other way. After the game, I walked over to the state capitol building that was just down the road. It was all lit up with Christmas lights and a tree out front. The streets leading from the Capitol building to downtown were all lined with wreaths, and the whole town was lit up to celebrate the holidays. The weird part, though, is that there was no people to be found. The town felt as though it was already asleep, and I had it all to myself as I walked around. Montgomery, Alabama looked amazing, all decorated for Christmas. I stopped at one of the few local bars that was still open after midnight, had a nightcap, and then Ubered back to my hotel. Pulling the pin back out of the sheet of paper, as I sat in the stands that night, I took time to reflect on my life, specifically the year of 2024. This year has been a roller coaster of ups and downs, as all years are. Taking time to reflect on my 23rd year on this earth, I have only one thing to say about it. I am proud of the strides I have made in every aspect of my life this year. This is the first time ever in my life that I can say I like who I am as a person. I have dealt with all sorts of issues in my life, one of the most consistent ones being a lack of confidence in myself. But I say this, and I say it proudly. For the first time in 23 years of life, I truly and honestly like who I am as a person. I not only like what I have accomplished in the past year, but more importantly, I like the trajectory I have set myself up for as life moves forward. When I was a young boy, thinking back all the way to the time I was 5, all I ever wanted to do was be like everyone else. For some reason, I never felt as though I was. I am sure that was more of my own head playing with me than anything, but I always felt like I was on the outside of the circle looking in. Moving from a wee lad to high school, my mom dying freshman year did not set me up in a way that would help me relate to many of my peers during those years. I always felt as though people pitied me or treated me a little differently because they knew I didn't have the easiest home life. To explain it simply, I felt trapped in a situation that was out of my control. I was a fresh fawn in a forest full of wolves. Not that my peers were wolves, but I was just in over my head, to say the least. After high school, I went off to college, where in my mind, I was finally going to get a fresh start on life. and be able to create who I wanted to be. It is hard to create a new self when you have only ever known one thing. I tried to change. I tried to adapt, but I didn't know how to become something that was only an idea in my head. What ended up happening was a global pandemic that completely ruined my college experience. Not only did it ruin my college experience, but it took a great strain on me mentally. A strain that I don't think I finally recovered from until this year. All those years of trying to be the person I wanted to be has led up to this year, the 23rd year of my life, when I stopped trying to fit into the box I thought I was supposed to fit into, instead molding into my own shape, a shape that fits the box that I have built. This year, I took more steps down the path of enjoying my own life instead of trying to make it like everyone else's. I attribute that to many different factors, one being my daily routine, making sure to do my German lesson, going to the gym, reading, and hiking every day. Having a daily routine has created discipline in my life that keeps me honest with myself. If I am not doing the things that benefit my day-to-day life, then I'm not taking care of myself. A major hobby that I attribute to the drastic improvement of my life is hiking. Taking the time out of my afternoon to disassociate with life and just wander through the woods has helped me in so many factors. A key one is my mental state. So much of my life has been stuck in front of screens. Even as I read this to you now, I'm looking at a screen and recording it on my phone. But as I continue to separate from a normal modern lifestyle and spend more time in the woods, the better my life has gotten. Hiking makes me put the phone down, letting the demons that have plagued my life fade into the abyss, allowing my head to be clearer. Having a clearer head has allowed me to be happier. Hiking is my form of therapy. Hiking has also been a great way for me to incorporate more exercise and outside time into my life. The more time I spend outside, the better I feel. As of today, we have breached 175 miles hiked this year, with roughly 150 of those being barefoot. I feel healthier. Walking barefoot has removed almost all of my ankle, knee, and hip pain that I used to feel when standing for multiple hours at a time. Lastly, those hours spent walking in the woods by myself have had an incredible impact on me finding myself. I know who I am. I know who I plan on becoming, and I know that I have the ability to get there. The second major in my life, as many of you know, is college football. As the games I ran you through earlier were my 6th and 7th college football games of the year. To many, that is a crazy amount of football games to attend in one year. To me, however, it is the makings of an entire college experience that I never got to have. Growing up, almost all of my birthdays were Notre Dame themed football parties. It was always my favorite sport. As a kid, I obsessed over it. In high school, I didn't play football for the first 3 years. Why, you may ask? There's only one reason. I didn't play because my mom didn't want me to. She was afraid I would get hurt. She tried her hardest to steer me away from the sport I loved so much my entire childhood, to the point that I didn't even play it after she was dead. Until my senior year, when I felt as though I had the right to make my own decision on what sports I play, because after all, it was my last chance I would ever get to play. Still then, I did not fall in love with it again until later on, returning to my messed up college experience. I made 2 friends that freshman year that are still some of my best friends to this day. One of them, Andrew, who would later transfer to UW-Madison. He would be the one to bring me to my first Badger game and my first college football game ever. From the moment we walked into Camp Randall, my love for this game has pulsed through every fiber of my being. Now every year, Andrew, Sam, and I will meet up for a college football game to celebrate what I sadly never got to have in college. With an ode to college ball, I would like to say thank you to this sport, one of the pillars of my childhood that I experienced in my own way. Not the way I originally intended on doing it, but it was the way it was intended to be given to me. This was my college experience, and I will look back on the fall of 2024 as being one of the craziest 4-month runs I will ever go on in my life. This year has been an amazing experience in every level of my life. I want to thank all of you who listen. I love you. Bye.